The stars looked different now. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty's Edge and stared at the viewscreen. 3 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council made their decision. 3 weeks since they voted to lock humanity inside their own solar system like prisoners in a cage. Jake's hands gripped the armrests of his captain's chair. His ship was still outside the Sol system when the vote happened. They had been exploring a nebula cluster, doing the peaceful work that humans always did. Now alien warships surrounded them, demanding they return home. "Captain, they're hailing us again," Lieutenant Amy Peterson said from the communications station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. "Put them through," Jake replied. The viewscreen changed. A reptilian face appeared, covered in dark green scales. Commander Zethrax of the Vrak species looked at Jake with cold yellow eyes. "Human vessel, you have ignored our instructions for the last time. Turn your ship around and return to Earth immediately." Jake stood up slowly. He was not a tall man, but he carried himself with the confidence of someone who had commanded ships for 15 years. "Commander, we are in neutral space. No law in the galaxy gives you the right to order us anywhere." Zethrax's scales seemed to darken with anger. "The Council has spoken. All humans must return to their system. You are no longer welcome in galactic space." "The Council can speak all they want," Jake said calmly. "But ancient maritime law says that no authority can force a vessel to return against the captain's will when in neutral territory." "That law is older than the Council itself," the alien commander hissed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You dare quote law to me? You are primitives who barely understand faster than light travel. Return now or we will escort you by force." Jake smiled, though there was no humor in it. "You can try." The communication cut off. Around the Liberty's Edge, 12 Vrax warships moved into attack formation. Jake's crew watched their sensors carefully, waiting for his orders. "Sir, what do we do?" Amy asked quietly. Jake sat back down. "We wait. And we show them that humans don't scare easily." Back on Earth, President Helen Burke stood before the United Nations Assembly. Every seat was filled. Every eye was on her. The room was so quiet that the sound of her footsteps echoed as she walked to the podium. "My fellow citizens of Earth," she began, her voice strong and clear. 3 weeks ago, the Galactic Council voted against us. They decided that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed among the stars. They decided that we must stay locked in our home system, unable to explore, unable to grow, unable to be free. She paused, looking across the faces in the crowd. They made this decision because they fear us. Not because we threatened them. Not because we attacked anyone. They fear us because we are different. Because we think differently. Because we refuse to accept the way things have always been. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. President Burke raised her hand for silence. "The Council believes that economic pressure will force us to accept their decision. They believe we will eventually beg them to let us out of our cage." She leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "They are wrong." The room erupted in applause. President Burke waited for it to fade before continuing. "For months we have known this day might come. While we hoped for peace, we prepared for this betrayal. Today I am announcing that humanity will not comply with the Council's restrictions. We will not surrender our right to explore the universe. We will not abandon our colony ships or our explorers already beyond our system." More applause, louder this time. President Burke's expression grew serious. "Let me be clear. We do not want war. But we will not be prisoners either. If the Council wishes to enforce their unjust decision, they will discover that humans do not break easily. Throughout our history, we have faced impossible odds. We have survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and countless disasters. We are still here. And we will still be here long after the Council learns the cost of their arrogance." In the Galactic Council chambers, thousands of light years away, Ambassador Thelnara of the Kree species watched the broadcast of President Burke's speech. Her feathers ruffled with concern. The Kree were bird-like beings with keen eyes and even keener minds. "This is a mistake," she said to her aide, a younger Kree named Pelric. "The Council should have studied human history more carefully before making this vote." "They are primitives, Ambassador," Pelric replied, repeating the common opinion among Council species. "What can they possibly do against the combined might of 200 civilizations?" Thelnara's head tilted in the Kree gesture of disagreement. "I have studied their history. These beings fought 2 global wars in the span of 30 years. They created weapons powerful enough to destroy their own planet, then chose not to use them. They have a concept called mutually assured destruction. It means they would rather die than surrender. Surely they are not that foolish, Pelric said. Not foolish, determined. Thelnara pulled up data on her console. Look at their military history. Small forces defeating larger ones through tactics and sheer refusal to give up. At a place called Thermopylae, 300 soldiers held back an army of thousands. At Bastonia, surrounded troops refused to surrender even when offered mercy. At Hamburger Hill, they took a position that cost them dearly, simply because they refused to fail. She looked at her aide seriously. The Council thinks humans are weak because they are young. But I have learned something about humans. They are most dangerous when cornered, when they have nothing left to lose, and we just back them into the smallest corner possible. Chairman Vorath of the Delthani species dismissed her concerns when she presented them to the Council. The Delthani were aquatic beings ruling their species from vast underwater cities. Vorath considered himself sophisticated and wise. Your concerns are noted, Ambassador Thelnara, but unnecessary, he said, his voice bubbling through his translation device. The humans will comply. They have no choice. Without access to trade routes, without the ability to expand, their economy will collapse within a year. They will beg us to reconsider. Thelnara bowed her head in respect, but her mind was troubled. She had seen the look in President Burke's eyes during that broadcast. It was not the look of someone preparing to surrender. Back on the Liberty's edge, Jake Morrison received a coded message from Earth. He read it carefully, then smiled for the first time in 3 weeks. Amy, send a message to the Vrax fleet. Tell Commander Zethrax that we decline his escort. Tell him that humanity thanks the Council for making their position clear, and tell him that they should have left us alone. Sir, they're powering up weapons, Lieutenant Chris Hayes called from Tactical. Jake's smile widened. Good. It's time they learned what humans can do when pushed too far. All hands, battle stations. Let's show them why you don't corner a human. The Liberty's Edge powered up its engines. Around the ship, space itself seemed to shimmer. And in that moment, the galaxy changed forever. The underground facility was 500 feet below the Nevada desert. Lieutenant Commander Danny Cruz walked through the security checkpoints with practiced ease. He had made this trip twice a week for the past 6 months. Each time he learned something new that made him smile. Today he was bringing guests. Important ones. President Helen Burke followed him through the final checkpoint along with Admiral Greg Watson and several other high-ranking officials. They had all signed more security documents than Danny could count. What they were about to see was humanity's biggest secret. How long has this facility been operational? President Burke asked as they entered an elevator that went down even further. Construction started 4 years ago, Madam President, Danny replied, back when we first detected unusual patterns in Council communications. Our intelligence suggested they were planning something. We decided to prepare. The elevator doors opened. They stepped into a massive chamber carved from solid rock. The space was as large as 3 football fields filled with machinery, computers, and hundreds of scientists and engineers working at various stations. Welcome to Project Defiance, Danny said. Admiral Watson whistled low. I've seen a lot of military installations in my career. This is impressive. A woman approached them wearing a white lab coat and safety goggles pushed up on her forehead. She was in her mid-30s with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and grease stains on her hands. Madam President, this is Chief Engineer Lisa Grant, Danny introduced. She runs the Technical Development Division. Lisa wiped her hand on her coat before shaking hands. Sorry about the mess. We've been running tests all morning. What exactly are you testing? The President asked. Lisa's eyes lit up with excitement. Everything the Council thinks we can't do. Come on, I'll show you. She led them across the facility floor to a large object covered with a protective tarp. With a dramatic gesture, Lisa pulled the tarp away. Beneath it was what looked like a sleek fighter ship, but smaller and with unusual angles that seemed to bend light around them. This is the Phantom Mark III, Lisa explained, equipped with our phase shift drive. Phase shift? Admiral Watson stepped closer, examining the ship with professional interest. The Council's ships use standard faster-than-light drives, Lisa said. They're efficient but easy to detect. Every time they jump, they leave a signature that sensors can track for hours. We took their technology and improved it. She climbed up on the ship's wing, pointing to an array of unusual components. The phase shift drive doesn't just move through normal space. It temporarily shifts the ship slightly out of phase with regular reality. For a few seconds, the ship exists in a state between dimensions. I understood about half of that, the President admitted with a slight smile. Lisa laughed. Simple version. Our ships can appear and disappear like ghosts. Their sensors can't detect us until we want them to. We can be right next to a council ship and they would never know. How many of these do we have? Admiral Watson asked. 37 operational fighters, Danny answered. Another 60 in production. We should have 150 within 3 months. A man joined them, younger than Lisa, but with the same excited energy. He wore thick glasses and carried a tablet covered in complex equations. Dr. Kevin Park, Danny introduced. Our lead physicist. He's developed something else the council doesn't know about. Kevin adjusted his glasses nervously. He was not comfortable with attention, but his work spoke for itself. We call it the quantum disruptor. The council ships all use energy shields based on harmonic frequencies. Each species uses slightly different frequencies, but they all work on the same basic principle. He pulled up a holographic display from his tablet. We discovered that if you hit those shields with precisely calibrated quantum pulses, the harmonic frequency destabilizes. The shields don't just fail, they collapse completely, and it takes several minutes to restart them. President Burke looked at the display, then at Kevin. You're telling me we can turn off their shields? Yes, ma'am. For about 4 minutes, depending on their shield generator quality. That's more than enough time for conventional weapons to do their job. Admiral Watson turned to the president. This changes everything. With these two technologies, we could fight them. We can do more than fight, Danny said quietly. We can win. The group moved to another section of the facility. Here, technicians were working on communication equipment and sensor arrays. Danny pulled up several screens showing intercepted council communications. For the past 2 years, we've been monitoring everything the council says. They believe humans are too primitive to break their encryption. They were wrong. Danny pulled up a specific message. This is from 6 months ago. Council Chairman Vorath discussing plans to limit human expansion. He called us dangerous primitives who needed to be contained. President Burke's jaw tightened as she read the message. They planned this for months. While we were trying to negotiate in good faith, they were preparing to cage us. Yes, ma'am. But their arrogance gave us time to prepare. Danny switched to another screen. We know their fleet positions. We know their patrol routes. We know which species are loyal to the council and which ones are having doubts. Knowledge is power, and we have a lot of knowledge. Meanwhile, in the council chambers light years away, Ambassador Thelnara sat in a private meeting room with 2 other council members. Both were from species that had expressed concerns about the vote. Councillor Mir'Allah of the crystalline luminar species spoke first. Her body glowed softly with internal light. The humans are too quiet, Thelnara. I expected protests, threats, demands for reconsideration. Instead, they simply said no and went silent. They are planning something. Thelnara agreed. Chairman Vorath believes their silence means acceptance. He thinks they are defeated. I believe the opposite. The third member of their group, Councillor Vental of the amphibious Aquari, made a gurgling sound of agreement. I have reviewed their military history as you suggested. These beings do not surrender easily. When the Roman Empire tried to conquer Germanic tribes, those tribes formed alliances and destroyed entire legions. When Napoleon seemed unstoppable, the Russians burned their own cities rather than let him have them. Humans would rather lose everything than submit. We must convince the council to reconsider, Mir'Allah said. War with humanity will cost us dearly. Thelnara's feathers drooped. I have tried. Chairman Vorath will not listen. He has already authorized Commander Zethrax to use force against the Liberty's Edge if they continue to refuse escort. Then blood will be spilled, Vental said sadly. And once it starts, I fear where it will end. Back at the Nevada facility, President Burke finished her tour. She had seen weapons that could disable council ships. She had seen stealth technology that made human vessels invisible. She had seen communication intercepts that gave them complete knowledge of enemy movements. How long before you're ready? She asked Danny. We're ready now, Madam President. We've been ready for weeks. We were just waiting for them to make the first move. President Burke nodded slowly. The Liberty's Edge is still refusing to return. Council ships have surrounded them. It's only a matter of time before shooting starts. Captain Morrison is a good officer, Admiral Watson said. He won't start a fight, but he won't back down either. Then we need to be ready to support him. President Burke looked around at the facility one more time. The council thinks we're helpless. They think we'll surrender when faced with their superior numbers and technology. They're about to learn that humans have been underestimated before. It never ends well for those who underestimate us. Danny pulled up a communication screen. Madam President, we have ships in position. The moment Captain Morrison needs help, he'll have it. The Council won't see us coming until it's too late. Good. President Burke's expression was determined. The Council voted to seal our doom. Instead, they sealed their own. Make sure our people are ready, Commander. The galaxy is about to learn what happens when you corner humanity. In the cold darkness of space near the nebula cluster, the Liberty's Edge waited. Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair, calm and ready. Around his ship, 12 Virax warships prepared to attack. Jake had received the coded message from Earth. He knew about the Phantom fighters. He knew help was coming. He knew that this moment would change everything. Sir, the Virax are charging weapons, Lieutenant Amy Peterson reported. Jake smiled. Let them. We've been backed into a corner long enough. Time to show them that cornered animals bite back the hardest. All hands prepare for combat. This is the day we stop running and start fighting. The stars watched silently as history prepared to turn. The colony ship New Horizon carried 5,000 souls, men, women, and children who had volunteered to start a new life on a distant world. They had been traveling for 3 months, filled with hope and dreams of building something new under alien stars. Captain Ryan Palmer had been making this run for 7 years. He had transported 12 successful colonies to new worlds. He knew his ship, knew his crew, and knew how to keep his passengers safe, but he had never faced anything like this. Captain, we have incoming ships, his navigator, Lieutenant Ben Carter, called out. 40 vessels. Military configuration. They're forming a blockade pattern. Ryan stood from his chair and studied the tactical display. 40 warships surrounding a single colony ship was not just excessive. It was meant to intimidate. Open a channel, Ryan ordered. The main view screen lit up. An insectoid face appeared, covered in a black exoskeleton with compound eyes that reflected light like dark mirrors. Admiral Krenthor of the Zinthari species looked at Ryan with what might have been contempt. It was hard to read expressions on an insect face. Human vessel New Horizon. You are in violation of Council Directive 7743. Turn your ship around and return to Earth immediately. The Admiral's voice came through the translator, sharp and clicking. Admiral, we left Earth 4 months ago, Ryan said calmly. Before the Council vote, we have 5,000 civilians on board, including 800 children. We have a legal claim to the colony world of New Terra. That claim was approved by the Council itself 2 years ago. The situation has changed, Krenthor replied. All human expansion is now forbidden. You will turn around. Ryan took a deep breath. Admiral, we have traveled for months. Our destination is only 2 weeks away. These people sold everything they owned for this chance. They left their homes, their families. You can't just tell them to go back. I can and I will. Turn around or face the consequences. What consequences? Ryan asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. You're going to attack a colony ship full of civilians? We will do what is necessary to enforce Council law. The communication cut off. Ryan looked at his crew. His first officer, Lieutenant Karen Mills, spoke quietly. Sir, we can't fight 40 warships. We have no weapons. We're just a colony ship. I know, Ryan said. He thought about the children in the passenger sections. Families who had invested everything in a dream that was now being torn away. But I won't turn around. These people trusted us to take them to their new home. We're going to get them there. Captain, they're charging weapons, Ben Carter said, his voice shaking. Ryan sat back down. Shields to maximum. Send a distress signal on all frequencies. If they're going to shoot at us, I want everyone to know about it. Admiral Krenthor watched the human ship on his display. The colony vessel had not turned around. The distress signal was broadcasting across multiple systems. It was foolish and pointless. No one would help them. Weapons officer, fire a warning shot across their bow. Target their secondary engine array. Do not destroy the ship, but damage it enough that they cannot continue forward. Yes, Admiral. The Zinthari warship fired. Energy beams crossed space in milliseconds. They struck the New Horizon's rear section. Not a direct hit, but close enough. The explosion tore through engine compartments and life support systems. On the New Horizon, alarms blared. Ryan was thrown from his chair as the ship shuddered under the impact. Damage report, he shouted over the noise. Life support is failing in sections C through F, Karen reported, pulling herself back to her station. We've lost 2 secondary engines. Main power's down to 60%. Casualties? Still checking. But sir, those sections had passenger quarters. Ryan's hands clenched into fists. They had attacked a colony ship. They had hurt civilians, children. The council had just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Get emergency teams to those sections. Save everyone you can. Ryan opened a channel to the Zinthari fleet. Admiral Krenthor, you just attacked innocent civilians. You will answer for this. The Admiral's insect face showed no emotion. You were warned. Now turn around or the next shot will be worse. Ryan was about to respond when something appeared on his sensors. Something impossible. Captain, new contacts, Ben Carter said, his voice filled with shock. 12 ships. Small fighter class. They just appeared out of nowhere. I mean, literally nowhere. They weren't there 1 second, and then they were. Commander Sophie Blake led the squadron of Phantom fighters. She had been waiting, invisible in phase-shifted space, watching the situation develop. When the Zinthari fired on the colony ship, her orders became clear. All fighters weapons free. Target their engines and shield generators. We're not here to kill. We're here to send a message. Let's show them what human tech can really do. The 12 Phantom fighters moved faster than anything the Zinthari had ever seen. They were smaller targets, harder to hit, and equipped with quantum disruptors that made Council shields useless. Sophie locked onto a Zinthari cruiser, fired her disruptor, and watched the ship's shields collapse. 2 seconds later, her conventional missiles struck the engine section. The cruiser went dark, tumbling in space. Fighter 2, your target is to our right, she called to her wingman, Lieutenant Paul Stevens. Got it, Commander. Shields are down, hitting their power generators now. Around the battlefield, Zinthari ships scrambled to respond, but they were built to fight large vessels, not small. Fast fighters that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Their targeting systems couldn't lock on. Their shields failed before they even knew they were under attack. Admiral Krenthor watched in horror as his fleet fell apart. 17 ships were disabled in less than 3 minutes. His flagship's shield suddenly collapsed without warning. What is happening? He shouted at his tactical officer. Unknown technology, Admiral. Our shields are failing. Our weapons cannot target them effectively. These ships do not match any known human design. There are only 12 of them. We have 40 ships. We had 40 ships, Admiral. We now have 23 operational vessels. 16 have lost power or shields. 1 has lost navigation entirely. Sophie's voice came over all frequencies. Zinthari Fleet, this is Commander Sophie Blake of the Earth Defense Force. You attacked a civilian vessel carrying families and children. That was your first mistake. Your second mistake was thinking humans would not respond. You have 2 choices. Leave this system immediately or lose more ships. Choose now. Admiral Krenthor had never retreated in his career. The Zinthari were warriors, proud and strong. But pride meant nothing if your entire fleet was disabled. He made the only choice he could. All ships. Withdraw. Jump to rally point Theta 7. The remaining Zinthari ships activated their faster-than-light drives and disappeared. The battlefield fell silent except for the disabled vessels drifting in space. Sophie brought her fighter alongside the New Horizon. Captain Palmer, this is Commander Blake. Are you okay? Ryan Palmer let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Commander, you have no idea how good it is to hear your voice. We have casualties. Life support is damaged. But we're alive. Hold tight, Captain. We have repair ships on the way. You'll be back on course to New Terra within a day. Commander, what were those ships? I've never seen human fighters like that. Sophie smiled inside her cockpit. That's because they're brand new. The Council thinks humans are primitive. We just proved them wrong. Welcome to the new era, Captain. News of the engagement spread across the galaxy within hours. Council species monitoring the communications were shocked. A dozen human fighters had defeated 40 warships. Impossible technology that made their shields useless. Ships that appeared from nowhere. On Earth, President Burke received the report with satisfaction. Commander Blake performed perfectly. No Council ships destroyed, but their military capability shown to be vulnerable. That will make them think. Danny Cruz stood beside her. It's already working, Madam President. We're intercepting Council communications. Half of them are panicking. The other half are demanding an investigation into how humans developed this technology. Good. Let them panic. Let them wonder. The more they fear us, the less likely they are to push further. But in the Council chambers, the reaction was not what President Burke hoped. Chairman Vorath was not afraid. He was angry. This is an act of war, he declared to the assembled Council. The humans have attacked Council ships without provocation. Ambassador Thelnara stood up, her feathers ruffled in agitation. Without provocation, Admiral Krenthor fired on a civilian colony ship. He struck first. He was enforcing council law, Vorath shot back. The humans should have complied. They were civilians. Children were hurt. The council chamber erupted in argument. Some species agreed with Thelnara. Others supported Vorath. The council, united for 1,000 years, was beginning to fracture. General Daxer of the Rakashi species stood up. He was a massive feline being, covered in golden fur with scars from 100 battles. His voice was a deep growl that silenced the chamber. Enough arguing. The humans have shown they have teeth. If the council wishes to enforce its decision, then we must respond with overwhelming force. Give me command of a proper fleet. Not 40 ships, but 300. Let me show these humans what happens when they defy the council. The council chamber had never been so loud. 200 species, representatives from civilizations across the galaxy, all shouting at once. The carefully maintained order of 1,000 years was breaking apart. Ambassador Thelnara stood at her podium, trying to be heard over the chaos. We must negotiate. The humans have shown they can defend themselves. Continuing this conflict will cost us dearly. Cost us? Chairman Vorath's voice boomed through his translation device. They attacked council ships. 17 vessels disabled in minutes. This cannot stand. Councilor Marala of the Luminar species rose, her crystalline body glowing brighter with emotion. Admiral Krenthor fired first. He attacked a civilian vessel. The humans only defended their people. He was enforcing our decision, another councilor shouted. The humans refused to comply. The argument continued for hours. Finally, Chairman Vorath called for order. The chamber fell silent, but the tension remained thick. The situation is clear, Vorath said. The humans have developed unexpected technology. They have shown willingness to fight. If we appear weak now, other species will question our authority. We must respond with strength. Thelnara spread her wings in the Kree gesture of strong disagreement. Strength? You mean overwhelming force against a single species? How is that different from tyranny? Watch your words, Ambassador, Vorath warned. No, I will not watch my words.
I have studied humans.
I have learned their history. They do not surrender. They do not break. Push them harder, and they will push back even harder. We should be negotiating, not escalating. General Daxer stepped forward. The massive Rakashi warrior commanded attention simply by standing. His golden fur caught the chamber lights, and his scarred face showed a lifetime of battles. I have fought in 37 wars, Daxer said, his voice a deep rumble. I have conquered 12 rebellious systems. I have never lost a battle, but I have also learned to respect dangerous opponents. He turned to face Thelnara. The ambassador is right that humans are dangerous. She is also right that they do not surrender easily. The chamber went quiet. If General Daxer was agreeing with calls for negotiation, perhaps the council would listen. But then Daxer continued. However, respect for an enemy does not mean we should fear them. It means we should take them seriously. 300 ships under my command will show the humans that defiance has consequences. We will break their will to resist not through cruelty, but through undeniable military superiority. Chairman Vorath nodded approvingly. The council must show unity and strength. General Daxer, you have authorization to assemble your fleet. 17 species have volunteered their finest warships. You will have the largest strike force in council history. Thank you, Chairman. I will not fail. Daxer bowed and left the chamber to prepare. Thelnara watched him go, her heart heavy. She turned to Marala and Councillor Vental of the Aquari, who had both supported negotiation. He is going to attack Earth directly. Perhaps the humans will surrender when faced with such overwhelming force, Vental suggested, though his voice held no confidence. They will not surrender, Thelnara said quietly. They will fight. And this galaxy will never be the same after what comes next. On Earth, Admiral Greg Watson stood in the war room deep beneath the Pentagon. The room was filled with officers, strategists, and technical experts. Everyone was studying the same intelligence reports. 300 ships, Admiral Watson said, looking at the holographic display. 17 different species. Led by their best general. They're bringing everything. Can we win? President Burke asked. She had come down from the White House as soon as the intelligence came through. Watson was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. Yes, Madam President. We can win. But it won't be easy and it won't be cheap. Lieutenant Beth Kane stepped forward. She was young for her rank, only 28, but she had proven herself to be a tactical genius. She had spent the last 3 years studying every major battle in human history, looking for patterns and lessons. "The Council is making a mistake," Beth said, pulling up data on the display. "They're bringing massive numbers and thinking that will be enough. But throughout history, large armies have been defeated by smaller forces that used better tactics. The Mongols defeated armies 5 times their size through mobility and psychological warfare. The Vietnamese defeated a technologically superior American force through guerrilla tactics and determination. The Afghans resisted 2 superpowers using knowledge of local terrain." "You're saying we should fight like guerrillas?" President Burke asked. "Not exactly, but we should learn from those examples." "The Council expects a traditional battle. Large fleets meeting in open space, exchanging fire until one side is destroyed. We're not going to give them that battle." Beth changed the display to show the Sol system. "This is our home territory. We know every asteroid, every gravitational anomaly, every place to hide and strike from. The Council fleet will be large and slow. We'll be small and fast." Danny Cruz joined them. "Our intelligence shows General Daxter is a traditional warrior. He believes in honor, in face-to-face combat, in proving superiority through direct conflict. That's his weakness. We're going to use every dirty trick we know," Admiral Watson added. "Hit-and-run attacks. False targets, misdirection, traps, nothing honorable about it. But we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive." President Burke studied the tactical maps. "What about civilian casualties? Earth has 8 billion people. If the battle comes to our planet, it won't," Beth said firmly. "We're going to meet them at the edge of the system. Set up defensive positions near Jupiter and Saturn. Use the planet's gravity wells and magnetic fields to our advantage. If they want to reach Earth, they'll have to go through multiple defensive lines first." "How many ships do we have?" the President asked. 237 combat-ready vessels, Admiral Watson reported. "Smaller than their fleet, but all equipped with phase-shift drives and quantum disruptors. Plus another 143 automated defense platforms positioned throughout the system." Danny pulled up additional screens. "We also have surprises they don't know about. Commander Blake's engagement with the Zinthari showed them our fighters and our ability to disable shields. But we've been careful not to show everything. They don't know about our minefields. They don't know about our EMP pulses. They don't know about our cyber warfare capabilities." "Cyber warfare?" President Burke looked interested. "Against alien computers? The Council uses a standardized communication protocol across all species," Danny explained. "It makes their different technologies compatible. It also makes them vulnerable to the right virus. We've developed something that can disrupt their targeting systems and sensor networks, not permanently, but long enough to give us an advantage in battle." Beth pointed to specific locations on the star map. "We're going to fight them in stages. First contact will be near Neptune, small harassment forces that hit fast and retreat. This will slow them down and make them cautious. Second line of defense is near Uranus, more substantial forces, enough to make them commit resources but not enough to engage in full battle. Third line is near Saturn. This is where we make our real stand." "Why Saturn?" President Burke asked. "The rings provide excellent cover for our fighters. The magnetic field interferes with their sensors. And there's a station we've been building in secret for the past year, Station Liberty. It's armed with weapons that the Council has never seen before." Admiral Watson looked at his officers with pride. "We're outnumbered but not outmatched. The Council thinks they're facing primitive humans with basic technology. They're about to discover that humans are very good at war. We've had thousands of years of practice." Far across the galaxy, General Daxter assembled his fleet. 300 warships from 17 species. Cruisers, battleships, carriers, and support vessels. It was beautiful in its deadly efficiency. His second-in-command, Commander Vexlar, reviewed the fleet roster. "General, every ship has reported ready. We can depart within the hour." Daxter nodded, his feline features set in determination. "Good, send a message to the Council. Tell them we will arrive at the human system in 10 days. Tell them that I will give the humans one chance to surrender. If they refuse, we will show the galaxy that defiance of the Council has consequences." "Do you expect them to surrender, General?" Daxter was quiet for a moment. He thought about what he knew of humans. Limited information, mostly from Council databases. A young species, aggressive, adaptable, with a troubling history of warfare against themselves. "No," he finally said. "They will not surrender. They will fight." And we will show them that courage alone is not enough against superior numbers and experience. Is it true they disabled 17 Zinthari ships with only 12 fighters? According to the reports, yes. They have new technology that can disable our shields temporarily. We will adapt our tactics accordingly. Keep shields in rotation so if one fails, another takes its place. Maintain spread formation so their fighters cannot hit multiple ships at once. Fight at long range where their small vessels are less effective. Vexler looked at the fleet gathering in space. With 300 ships, we cannot lose. Perhaps, Daxter said. But remember, Commander, the humans have... 10 days passed quickly. For the Council fleet, it was a journey of confidence and certainty. For humanity, it was 10 days of final preparations, last goodbyes, and quiet determination. General Daxter's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 300 warships appeared in formation, a sight that would have made any species surrender immediately. The massive vessels gleamed in the distant light of Earth's sun. Scan the system, Daxter ordered. Locate all human military assets. His sensor officer worked quickly. General, I'm detecting multiple defense platforms. Approximately 150 scattered throughout the system. Also detecting what appears to be 40 ships near Neptune, smaller craft near Uranus, and a larger concentration near Saturn. Only 40 ships at Neptune? Daxter was surprised. Where is the rest of their fleet? Unknown, General. Perhaps they are hiding using their phase shift technology. Daxter nodded slowly. Or perhaps they do not have as many ships as we feared. Very well. Open all frequencies. Let me speak to the humans. Across every communication channel throughout Earth and every human installation, Daxter's message played. His voice was strong and clear through the translator. People of Earth, this is General Daxter of the Galactic Council Military Forces. You are surrounded. You are outnumbered. You have 12 hours to surrender unconditionally. Return to your system boundaries. Dismantle your military forces. Accept Council oversight. Do this and no more blood will be spilled. Refuse and we will show you the price of defiance. You have 12 hours. Choose wisely, the message ended. Silence filled space for a long moment. Then President Helen Burke's response came, broadcast on the same frequencies. Her voice was calm, almost casual. No. One word. Nothing else. The simplicity of it was somehow more powerful than any long speech. Daxter's fur bristled. They refuse. Very well. All ships advance formation. We move to Neptune first. Eliminate their forward forces. The massive fleet began moving. 300 ships advancing like a wave of steel and fire. Jake Morrison watched them come. The Liberty's Edge was part of the Neptune Defense Group. 40 human ships spread out near the ice giant planet. They looked tiny compared to the approaching Council fleet. Captain, they're moving into optimal range, Lieutenant Amy Peterson reported. All ships, this is Morrison. Remember the plan. Wait for my signal. The Council fleet came closer. Confident, overwhelming, unstoppable. Now, Jake shouted. 40 human ships opened fire simultaneously. But they weren't aiming at the Council ships. They were aiming at pre-positioned mines that had been floating in space, invisible to Council sensors. The mines exploded in a chain reaction. Not nuclear explosions, but electromagnetic pulses designed by human engineers, specifically to disrupt alien technology. The pulse wave swept through the lead elements of the Council fleet. 60 ships suddenly went dark. Their shields failed. Their weapons powered down. Their engines stopped. What happened? Daxter roared. Report. Some kind of electromagnetic weapon, General. Our forward ships are disabled. It will take 10 minutes to restart their systems. 10 minutes? Defend them. All ships cover the disabled vessels. But the human ships didn't press the attack on the disabled vessels. Instead, they split into small groups and hit the Council ships that were still operational. Quantum disruptors knocked down shields. Missiles struck engines and weapon systems, not trying to destroy but to disable and damage. They're not fighting like a military force, Commander Vexler observed. They're fighting like pirates. Hit and run, no honor. Honor means nothing if you're dead, Daxter said grimly. All ships spread formation. Don't cluster together. Long-range weapons only. Keep those small ships away from us. The human ships retreated, disappearing back toward Uranus. The Council fleet reformed. They had taken damage but not critical losses. 20 ships were significantly damaged. Another 40 had minor damage. We continue forward, Daxter ordered, but more carefully. Lieutenant Beth Kane watched the Neptune engagement from Earth's command center. First phase successful. We damaged them and slowed them down without losing any ships. Casualties? President Burke asked. 3 ships took damage. No casualties. The crews are already making repairs. Admiral Watson studied the tactical display. They're being more careful now. Good. That's what we want. Every hour we delay them is another hour to prepare. The Council fleet reached Uranus 3 hours later. This time they were ready for tricks. Sensors swept constantly for mines or hidden ships. The formation stayed spread out. 60 human ships waited near Uranus. Larger vessels this time, including several cruisers and destroyers. This is their main fleet, Vexlar said. Finally, a real battle. But as the Council fleet approached, the human ships didn't attack. They just waited. Why aren't they moving? Daxter wondered aloud. Then space itself seemed to ripple. Suddenly, 60 ships became 120. Half of them had been hiding in phase-shifted space. Ambush! Vexlar shouted. The battle at Uranus was fiercer than Neptune. The human ships fought hard, exchanging fire with Council vessels. But they were still outnumbered. After 30 minutes of combat, the human fleet began to retreat toward Saturn. Daxter watched them go. We won. We drove them back. At what cost, General? Vexlar pulled up the damage reports. 40 more ships damaged. 5 destroyed. We've lost almost a quarter of our fleet's combat effectiveness. But we're still advancing. They cannot stop us. The Council fleet moved toward Saturn. They were more cautious now. Slower, but still moving forward. Behind them, damaged ships were being repaired or abandoned. At Saturn, the Council fleet finally saw the full extent of human defenses. Station Liberty orbited the massive planet, positioned perfectly within the rings. Around it, 137 human warships waited in defensive formation. That's their entire remaining fleet, Daxter said. Everything they have left is here. General, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from that station, the sensor officer reported. I've never seen anything like it. Can we destroy it? Unknown. The energy signature is not matching any known weapon system. Daxter made his decision. All ships prepare for final assault. We outnumber them 2 to 1 even after our losses. This is where we end their resistance. For the Council, the fleet advanced. The human ships held position, waiting. Then Station Liberty activated. The weapon was based on the quantum disruptor technology, but scaled up 1,000 times. It didn't just disable shields on individual ships. It created a field that disrupted shield harmonics across an entire region of space. Every Council ship's shields failed simultaneously. Fire, Admiral Watson ordered from Earth. The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Without shields, Council ships were vulnerable. Missiles struck engines. Energy weapons hit weapon systems. The attack was precise and devastating. But Daxter was a warrior with decades of experience. All ships, emergency maneuvers. Get out of that field's range. Rotate shield generators to backup frequencies. The Council fleet scattered. Some ships managed to restore shields on different frequencies. Others took heavy damage before escaping the field's range. The battle became chaos, ships fighting across the entire region near Saturn's rings. Jake Morrison brought the Liberty's Edge through a gap in the Council formation. Target that carrier. Take out their fighter bay. Commander Sophie Blake led her Phantom fighters through the rings themselves, using the ice particles as cover. All fighters stay close to the rings. Use them for protection. Hit the big ships from unexpected angles. The battle raged for 2 hours. The Council fleet had superior numbers, but the humans had better technology and home field advantage. Every asteroid, every gravitational anomaly, every magnetic field was used to human advantage. Finally, Daxter saw the truth. His fleet was being destroyed. Not quickly, but systematically. The humans weren't trying to win a glorious battle. They were trying to cripple his fleet completely. General, we've lost 90 ships, Vexlar reported, his voice shaken. Another 100 are damaged. If we continue, we'll lose everything. Daxter's pride warred with his tactical sense. He had never retreated, never lost, but he also knew when a battle was unwinnable. All ships prepare to withdraw. Before he could give the order, something else happened. All across the Council fleet, ships began losing their faster-than-light capability. The drives were powering down without anyone touching them. What's happening? Daxter demanded. Danny Cruz smiled in Earth's command center. Phase 3 is working perfectly. The virus we introduced into their communication systems just activated. It's shutting down their jump drives. All of them? President Burke asked. Every single ship. They're trapped in the Sol system. They can't escape. In his flagship, Daxter finally understood. The humans hadn't been trying to destroy his fleet. They had been trying to trap it. Now hundreds of Council ships were stranded in human territory. Damaged, unable to retreat, unable to call for help. "We're beaten," he said quietly. "They've beaten us." Jake Morrison's voice came over all channels. "Council fleet, this is Captain Jake Morrison. Your jump drives have been disabled. You cannot escape. You have two choices. Surrender now, or we continue this battle until every one of your ships is destroyed. You have 10 minutes to decide." Daxter looked at his command staff, at the damage reports, at the disabled ships and dead crew members. He had